It was a crisp autumn evening in London, and the studio lights of Piers Morgan and Censored buzzed with electric anticipation. The show, known for its no-holds-barred interviews, had drawn a packed live audience eager to see Hollywood heavyweight Mark Wahlberg promote his latest action thriller, The Fighter's Legacy. Mark, with his trademark confident stride and easy smile, walked onto the set to thunderous applause. He shook hands with Piers Morgan, the sharp-tongued host infamous for grilling celebrities until they cracked. The atmosphere felt light, jokes about Mark's Boston roots, a quick plug for the film. But nobody in that room, not the audience, not the producers, could have predicted the storm brewing just beneath the surface. This wasn't going to be just another promo spot. It was about to become television history. As Mark settled into the plush chair opposite Piers, the host leaned forward with that signature smirk, his eyes glinting under the spotlights. "Mark, welcome back. You've built this empire, movies, businesses, family man extraordinaire. But let's cut to the chase. With your past, how do you square that tough guy image with preaching family values?" The audience murmured softly, a mix of chuckles and curious whispers. Mark laughed it off at first, his voice steady and warm. "Piers, I've been open about my mistakes as a kid. I've turned my life around: faith, family, hard work. That's what the film's about, really, redemption." The camera panned to the co-hosts in the wings, one fidgeting with her notes, looking a bit uneasy as if sensing the shift in the air. But Piers wasn't done. He pressed on, his tone sharpening like a knife. "Redemption? Come on, Mark. You've got this squeaky clean persona now, but those old assault charges from your youth, beating people up, racial slurs. And now you're the poster boy for good Christian values? Isn't that a bit hypocritical?" The studio fell into a hushed tension, the audience's laughter dying out. A woman in the front row gasped audibly, her hand covering her mouth. Mark's jaw tightened just a fraction, his fingers drumming lightly on the armrest, a subtle tell for those who knew him. "Piers, I've paid my dues, apologized publicly, and worked to make amends. My faith guides me now. Why drag up ancient history when we're here to talk about the movie?" The producers in the control room exchanged nervous glances, one whispering urgently into a headset. What Piers said next would push everything over the edge. The exchange hung in the air like a loaded gun. Piers leaned back, crossing his arms with mock surprise. "Ancient history? Mark, in today's world people don't forget. You're out there promoting films with violence, glorifying fights, while telling kids to stay strong in faith. Doesn't that send mixed messages?" Mark paused, his eyes narrowing, but he kept his cool, flashing a brief, wry smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Mixed messages? Life's messy, Piers. My roles reflect real struggles, ones I've lived. But my personal life? That's about being a better man for my wife and kids." A ripple of supportive claps came from parts of the audience, but others shifted uncomfortably, phones already out, subtly recording. One co-host tried to interject with a light joke. "Hey Piers, maybe we can talk about Mark's burger chain instead? Those Wahlburgers look delicious." The attempt at levity fell flat, met with awkward silence. Little did anyone know, Mark was holding back a revelation from his recent charity work that could flip the script entirely. As the segment clock ticked toward the 5-minute mark, the tension simmered. Piers, sensing the ratings gold, doubled down. "Charity work is great, Mark, but let's be real, your Hollywood bubble. You support certain politicians who divide people, yet claim unity through faith. Hypocrisy much?" Mark's face hardened, his voice dropping an octave. "Piers, faith isn't politics. I've helped communities, built schools, things that bring people together." The audience was split now, some nodding in agreement, others whispering heatedly. A producer offstage waved frantically, mouthing, "Cut to commercial." But the live feed rolled on. "Hey, if you're watching this and feeling the heat build, hit that subscribe button right now. We've got more explosive stories like this coming your way. Don't miss out." Suddenly, an unexpected detail emerged. Piers pulled out a printed tweet from an old interview where Mark had defended his past actions a bit too casually years ago. "See this? You said boys will be boys. In 2025, that doesn't fly, mate. The studio air thickened, cameras zooming in on Mark's stilled posture. His response was measured, but his eyes flashed with restrained fire. That was me owning my immaturity. I've evolved. But you twisting it for clicks? That's low. A young audience member stood up briefly, cheering, "Go Mark!" before security motioned her down. The co-hosts exchanged wide-eyed looks, one murmuring, "This is getting intense." What Mark revealed about his private atonement next would leave the entire room speechless. The back and forth escalated subtly, each word like a spark on dry tinder. Piers chuckled derisively. Evolved? Or just rebranded? Your films make millions off aggression, yet you preach peace at church. Pick a lane, Mark. Mark leaned forward, his Boston accent thickening with emotion. Piers, aggression in stories shows consequences. That's the point. My life now? It's about lifting others up. Like the foundation I started for at-risk youth. The audience erupted in a mix of boos and applause, the divide palpable. One woman wiped a tear, moved by Mark's vulnerability, while a man in the back shook his head disapprovingly. The hum of the cameras seemed louder in the charged silence that followed. But just as Mark seemed poised to elaborate, Piers interrupted with a bombshell accusation that no one saw coming. Foundation? Noble, sure. But rumors say it's a tax dodge, convenient for a guy worth hundreds of millions. Piers dropped the line like a grenade, his smirk widening as the audience collectively inhaled. Mark's fists clenched visibly under the table, his voice trembling slightly, not with fear, but with barely contained outrage. That's a lie, Piers. Pure fabrication. I've poured my own money in, no write-offs. You spreading that? That's dangerous. The control room was in chaos now, lights flashing as producers scrambled. A co-host finally piped up, her voice shaky. Piers, maybe we tone it down? Mark's here as a guest. But the damage was done. Viewers at home, what do you think? Is Piers crossing a line, or is he just doing his job? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. As the clock hit another milestone, the drama showed no signs of easing. Mark took a deep breath, composing himself with the discipline of a former boxer. You want real talk? Fine. My past haunts me every day, that's why I fight for change. A hush fell over the studio, the audience leaning in, captivated. Piers, undeterred, fired back. Haunts you? Or motivates your brand? The exchange was electric, each retort building the pressure. Remember, if stories like this keep you on the edge of your seat, subscribe now. We drop new ones every week to keep the conversation going. Then came the twist. Mark pulled out his phone mid-interview, scrolling to a photo of kids at his foundation's event. Look at this, Piers. Real impact. Not your tabloid trash. The audience oohed, some clapping as the image flashed on the studio screens. Piers faltered for a split second, his confident facade cracking. Cute photo op. He recovered, but the momentum had shifted. The co-hosts nodded approvingly, one whispering to another, He's got him now. But Piers wasn't one to back down easily. What he unearthed from Mark's Hollywood feuds next would ignite the real fireworks. The studio lights felt hotter, the air thicker with unspoken words. Mark's vulnerability shone through as he spoke of his daily prayers, a humanizing moment that drew sympathetic sighs from the crowd. Faith isn't a shield, Piers, it's a guide through the mess. A light chuckle escaped from an audience member, breaking the tension briefly with, Amen to that. But Piers seized the pause. Guide? Or excuse? Your support for controversial figures says otherwise. Mark's eyes widened in genuine surprise, hinting at a deeper, untold story from his political endorsements. The audience buzzed, phones lighting up with live tweets. Hang on tight. What Mark confessed about his regrets would change everything in the next heartbeat. The studio of Piers Morgan Uncensored was a pressure cooker, the air thick with the aftershocks of Piers' latest jab at Mark Wahlberg's political endorsements. The audience, split between murmurs of support and skeptical whispers, leaned forward, sensing the interview teetering on the edge of something explosive. Mark's eyes, still locked on Piers, flickered with a mix of disbelief and resolve. The hum of the cameras was drowned out by the collective held breath of the crowd. A co-host, visibly anxious, shifted in her seat, her fingers twisting a pen as if it could anchor the spiraling tension. "Piers, maybe we pivot to the film?" she ventured weakly, but her voice was swallowed by the weight of the moment. Nobody could look away. Something big was coming, and it was about to redefine this television showdown. Mark leaned back, his broad shoulders squared, and took a slow, deliberate sip of water from the glass beside him. The pause was agonizing, the clink of the glass against the table echoing in the silent studio. "You want to talk endorsements, Piers? Fine. I've backed people I thought stood for unity, for working-class folks like the ones I grew up with. Mistakes? Sure, I've made 'em. I'm human." His Boston accent thickened, raw and unfiltered, as he pointed a finger at Piers. "But you twist that to paint me as some villain for your little circus." A ripple of gasps swept through the audience, a woman in the third row clutching her phone, already live-tweeting the clash. Piers' smirk faltered, but he recovered fast, leaning in with a glint in his eye. What he said next would push Mark to the brink. "Human? That's rich, Mark. You dodge accountability with that everyman charm, but your pals in politics have fueled division. Own it." Piers' words sliced through the studio, sharp and unrelenting. The audience erupted into a mix of boos and scattered applause, the divide growing sharper. A man in the back shouted, "Let him talk," while another shook his head, muttering about Hollywood elites. Mark's jaw clenched, his knuckles widening as he gripped the armrest. "Accountability? I've spent years building bridges, Piers, through my work, my foundation. You're cherry-picking to tear me down." The co-hosts exchanged panicked glances, one whispering, "This is too much," as the producers' headsets buzzed with frantic orders to keep the cameras rolling. "Viewers, what do you think? Has Piers gone too far, or is Mark dodging the heat? Drop your thoughts below, and let's keep this fire going." The tension climbed higher, the studio lights casting long shadows as Mark's voice dropped to a steely calm. "You want to know the truth? I endorsed a guy once who I thought cared about people like me. Found out later he didn't walk the talk. Broke my trust, too." The confession landed like a thunderclap, the audience gasping as one. A young woman in the front row wiped a tear, moved by Mark's raw honesty, while others whispered excitedly, phones flashing as they recorded. Piers, sensing a crack, pounced. "So you admit you backed the wrong horse? Why should we trust your judgment now?" The question hung like a guillotine, and the studio held its breath. But Mark's next move, a deeply personal story from his past, would turn the tables in a way no one expected. "Hey, if you're gripped by this showdown, hit that subscribe button right now." A producer's voice seemed to echo in the chaos, though it was just the moment's intensity urging viewers to stay locked in. "We've got more stories like this coming your way." Mark ignored the chaos, his gaze piercing through Piers. "You want judgment? Let me tell you about a kid I met through my foundation, a boy from a rough neighborhood, like I was. He's in college now because we gave him a shot. That's my judgment." The audience erupted in applause, some standing, while others sat stunned, torn by Piers' relentless prodding. A co-host finally jumped in, her voice shaky but warm. "Mark, that's incredible. Can you tell us more about the foundation?" But Piers cut her off, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Touching story, but does it erase the past?" What Mark revealed about his darkest regret next would leave the entire studio frozen. The air crackled as Mark's expression shifted, a flicker of pain crossing his face. "Erase the past? No. But it fuels me to do better." He paused, his voice softening, almost breaking. "When I was 16, I hurt people. I carry that shame every day. It's why I fight for kids who need a way out." The studio fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. A woman in the audience dabbed her eyes, while a man nodded slowly, visibly moved. Even the co-host sat still, one covering her mouth in quiet awe. Piers, for the first time, seemed caught off guard, his usual quick retort absent. The cameras zoomed in, capturing the raw vulnerability in Mark's eyes. But just as the moment felt like a turning point, Piers leaned forward with a new accusation, one so personal, it threatened to unravel everything. "Shame's a powerful word, Mark. But is it genuine, or just part of the redemption tour?" Piers' voice was low, almost venomous, as he pulled out a tabloid headline on his tablet, flashing it for the cameras. "Wahlberg's faith, sincere or scripted?" The audience gasped, some booing loudly as the headline glowed on the studio screens. Mark's face flushed, his hands balling into fists under the table. "You're not a journalist, Piers. You're a vulture." The words cut through the room, sharp and final. A co-host gasped audibly, while another tried to pivot. "Okay, let's talk about the film's action scenes." But it was too late, the line had been crossed. What Mark did next would make this moment go viral in ways no one could predict. The studio was a tinderbox, every eye glued to Mark as he rose from his chair, his movements slow but deliberate. "I came here to talk about my work, my film, my life. Not to be your punching bag." His voice was steady, but the tremble in it betrayed a storm of emotion. The audience was on its feet now, some cheering, others shouting at Piers, the divide electric. A producer offstage waved frantically, signaling for a commercial break, but the cameras stayed locked on Mark. "You want to talk shame? Try looking in the mirror, Piers. Twisting people's lives for clicks, that's your legacy." The crowd roared, a mix of shock and admiration, as Mark turned toward the exit, his head held high. But before he walked off, he stopped, looked straight into the camera, and dropped a final bombshell that would echo across social media. "Hold up, don't touch that dial!" The moment screamed, though no one said it aloud. "What do you think? Did Mark just win this war, or is Piers still in the game? Comment below and subscribe for more epic clashes." Mark's parting words hung in the air. "I'm done with games. To anyone watching, live your truth, help others, and don't let people like this tear you down." He pointed at Piers, then walked off, his footsteps echoing against the stunned silence. The audience exploded, half in wild applause, half in heated debate. Piers sat frozen, his smirk gone, as the co-hosts scrambled to fill the void. "Well, that was intense," one stammered, while the other forced a laugh. "Let's, go to break." The screens faded to black, but the internet was already ablaze. What happened backstage would spark a whole new chapter in the saga. The Piers Morgan Uncensored studio was still reeling as Mark Wahlberg's footsteps faded, the echo of his final words. "Live your truth, help others, and don't let people like this tear you down," hanging heavy in the air. The audience was a storm of emotions, some cheered wildly, others whispered in heated debate, phones flashing as clips of the showdown flooded social media. Piers, visibly rattled, tried to regain control with a forced chuckle. "Well, folks, that's live TV for you," he said, but his voice lacked its usual bite. The co-hosts scrambled to pivot, one stammering, "Let's talk about Mark's film, great action, right?" But the moment was lost. The cameras cut to a commercial, but the damage was done. Backstage, Mark was met by a shaken producer who apologized profusely, but he waved it off. "I said what I needed to say," he muttered, his face a mix of exhaustion and resolve. The internet erupted, with #WahlbergWalk trending within minutes. Clips of his speech went viral, sparking debates about accountability, redemption, and the ethics of gotcha journalism. Some praised Mark's raw honesty, others questioned if his past still cast a shadow. Piers, meanwhile, faced backlash for crossing a line, though his loyal fans defended his tough questions. In the days that followed, Mark's foundation saw a surge in donations, proving his point about impact over headlines. Piers doubled down on air, calling it just a lively debate. But the public wasn't buying it. The moment became a cultural flashpoint, a reminder that dignity and truth can cut through even the loudest noise. So, what do you think? Who won this clash? Was Mark right to walk away, or did Piers expose something real? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories that spark conversation.